Martin Hale always had a way of talking like everything was simple. His voice smooth, smile gentle, suit clean and sharp. He'd been my lawyer for over 20 years, handled my husband's will when James passed, helped me manage my investments, and even brought flowers to the funeral. So when he called and asked me to come into his office for a routine trust update, I didn't think twice. He poured me tea, like always. Earl Grey, no sugar. He remembered that. "I just need you to sign this, Clara," he said, sliding a thick folder toward me. "Just the last page. It's boilerplate language. Just a restructure, nothing to worry about." I looked at the folder. It was heavy, full of fine print. I flipped through the first few pages, and the words blurred together. Trusts, asset transfer, durable power, revocation clause, legal talk. "Anything big I should know?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He chuckled and waved his hand. "You'll still be in full control. It's just paperwork that makes things smoother down the line." Martin had always been a fast talker, but I trusted him. He helped me through the worst year of my life after James died. That had to mean something. So I picked up the pen and signed. I didn't know what I had just done, but he did. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying Martin's words. "Just sign here." The tone in his voice had changed near the end. He hadn't looked me in the eye when I walked out. That was new. The folder had been too thick, the language too vague. I should have read it all, but he said I didn't need to. I sat up in bed and turned on the lamp. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I looked around at the framed photos on my dresser, James with his fishing rod, Amber's college graduation, the lake house in Vermont, all of it tied to my name. My signature. A chill crept up my spine. Something was wrong. I got up, made a cup of tea, and sat at the kitchen table with a notepad. I started writing down everything I remembered from that meeting, his exact words, the way he pushed the pen into my hand, the smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I kept asking myself, why rush me? Why avoid details? Why now? I didn't have answers. But I had questions, and something deep in my gut told me those questions were going to change everything. The next morning started like any other. I watered my lilies, fed the neighbor's cat, and sat down with my crossword. Then the phone rang. Mrs. Clara Whitmore. A polite male voice asked, "This is Thomas from Wells Financial Security. We're calling to confirm the transfer request for your estate account." I froze. "I'm sorry, what transfer?" He hesitated. "A request was submitted yesterday, signed by you, to move your estate assets into a new management trust registered under Hale Holdings. We just need verbal confirmation before initiating." My hand tightened around the phone. I stood up without realizing it. "I didn't authorize any transfer," I said. My voice came out sharp, louder than I meant. "Silence. I'll flag the transaction," he said. "We'll hold it. But you may want to speak to your legal representative." I thanked him, but my fingers trembled as I set the phone down. Hale Holdings, Martin's last name, and I had signed it. I didn't call ahead. I drove straight to Martin's office and marched in, past the assistant who blinked at me like I was a ghost. He was in his glass office, reading something on his screen. When he saw me, he smiled, then paused when he saw my face. "Clara," he said, "everything all right?" "No," I said, stepping inside. I shut the door. Why did I get a call from my bank about a transfer I never approved? He leaned back, calm to calm. "You did approve it," he said. "Yesterday, you signed everything." I felt my heart pounding against my ribs. "You told me it was a simple update." He shrugged. "It is. You're not being removed, Clara. You're just no longer the primary authority. We're simplifying oversight. My firm. Look, I know this sounds scary, but it's actually good. You won't have to worry about handling anything. We'll manage it all. You stole my estate." He leaned forward. "You're 70, Clara. Be honest. Do you really want to keep managing finances and trusts and legal stuff?" I stared at him, stunned. "You're not getting younger," he added with a cold smile. "Someone had to take over eventually." I stood there, silent. I trusted him. He saw my grief after James died. He held my hand in court. He smiled at my daughter's wedding. And he just stole everything. He wasn't going to give it back. And I wasn't going to ask again. I called Amber that night, hoping she'd pick up with that bright "Hey Mom" she used when she was still my little girl. She answered on the third ring. "Hi Mom, everything okay?" "No," I said, pacing my kitchen floor. Amber, Martin stole the estate. He tricked me into signing something. I didn't read it. I trusted him. There was a pause. Then she said, "Wait, are you sure? I mean, maybe it's a misunderstanding." My breath caught. "Amber, I'm telling you, he transferred everything. He forged a new trust. I don't even have access to my own accounts." Another pause. I could hear her tapping, texting, typing, something, not listening. "Mom, you know you sometimes get overwhelmed by details. You've always hated paperwork." I stopped walking. "You think I imagined it?" "No, I'm just saying, maybe check with someone else before making this a big thing." That hurt worse than Martin's betrayal. Even my own daughter thought I was just being dramatic. I hung up and sat in the quiet for a long time. Then I opened my old address book. Not the one on my phone, the real one, bound in leather pages, yellowed at the edges. I flipped through until I saw the name, Gloria Chambers. We met in college. She studied numbers. I studied people. She always said I had the fire, and she had the map. She became a forensic accountant. I hadn't called her in years. I stared at her number for a full minute. Then I dialed. She answered on the first ring. "Clara." I swallowed hard. "I need help." 10 minutes later, we were on a video call. I told her the trust papers, the bank call. Amber not believing me. Gloria didn't blink. "That snake always gave me a weird vibe," she said. "You got the papers. I made a copy. Send them. I'll dig." Her voice was calm, but I could see it in her eyes. The fire, the fury. "I can't pay you. Stop. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it because he messed with the wrong woman." For the first time in days, I felt the heat return to my chest. Martin thought I'd just disappear, fade away, quietly. But he forgot something. I wasn't just a widow with a nice house. I was a storm waiting to rise the next morning. Gloria emailed me with a list of documents to gather, old bank statements, letters from Martin's firm, anything I'd ever signed with his name on it. I spent hours digging through drawers, boxes, even the dusty cabinet in the garage where James kept old tax files. Gloria called that night. "You're not crazy," she said. "I found 3 discrepancies. Martin's been slowly moving small assets into dummy accounts for months. Quietly, bit by bit. Most people wouldn't notice, but he got greedy." I felt a chill. So he planned this, carefully. Legally, it's a betrayal of fiduciary duty. Emotionally, it's a knife in the back. I stared at the copy of the trust agreement. Now that I knew what to look for, it was all there, tucked in fine print. Power of attorney, full access to my estate, asset restructuring without owner consent. I'd signed myself into a trap, and I was going to crawl out with my claws sharp. Gloria told me we needed legal firepower, not someone cozy, someone ruthless. She sent me a name, Jonah Reyes. I met him 2 days later at a quiet little office near downtown. He couldn't have been more than 35, but the way he looked me in the eye told me he didn't miss a thing. He read every page of Martin's trust file in silence. When he finished, he leaned back, his fingers steepled. "You didn't lose everything. He didn't move fast enough. There's still time to freeze the rest." "And Martin?" I asked. He raised an eyebrow. "If he forged anything, lied about fiduciary intent, or manipulated a vulnerable client, which I believe he did, he's toast, legally and professionally." He stood and pulled a form from his drawer. "We'll file to block access, get a judge to review the trust transfer, and demand full financial discovery." His confidence was steady, not arrogant. I liked that. "Clara," he said softly, "you were prey once. Now it's your turn to hunt." I left his office with a copy of the motion he'd filed. The woman in that folder wasn't just a signature anymore. She was a fight. And Martin Hale was about to learn that I never lose quietly. Jonah called me the next morning. "We're ready," he said. We had crafted the perfect setup. I called Martin and asked to meet in person. I told him I wanted to apologize, to make peace. I told him I'd decided to accept the new terms of the trust, just to keep things civil. He agreed too quickly. I met him at his office wearing a soft blue cardigan and pearl earrings. I looked every bit the fragile widow. That's what he expected. Gloria waited outside in the car, phone recording. Jonah had helped me set up a hidden microphone, tucked into the ribbon on my purse. Martin greeted me with a grin. "Glad you came around," he said, ushering me in. "I just want to understand it better," I said, voice soft. "Can you explain how this helps me?" And he did. He explained everything, how the trust made it easier for him to manage my money, how I wouldn't need to lift a finger, how the courts don't care about old women's complaints. He laughed when he said that. He laughed. That was the moment I knew I had him. 2 days later, Martin received a hand-delivered envelope. Inside was a summons: civil court, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. I didn't send it through his assistant. I made sure it was placed in his hand, face to face. He opened it right there in front of the courier. His smirk dropped. That afternoon, he called me. I didn't answer. He texted. I deleted it. He emailed. I forwarded it to Jonah. He showed up at my door, but I didn't open it. Instead, I stood behind the curtain and watched him pace back and forth, hands clenched, eyes searching. He wasn't calm anymore. He wasn't confident. He looked scared. Gloria called that night, giddy. The audio worked. He admitted everything. He thought he was clever, but now he's just caught. Jonah filed the evidence immediately. The court date was set. I didn't feel nervous. I felt ready, because this wasn't just about taking back my money. It was about showing the world that even women like me, older, softer, underestimated, know exactly how to roar when pushed far enough. The courtroom was colder than I expected, the kind of cold that crept into your fingers and made your bones feel smaller. I wore my late husband's navy scarf and a pearl brooch. Martin showed up in a tailored gray suit with that same polished smile he'd always worn in meetings. But this time, it didn't land. He looked across the aisle at me and tried to nod. I didn't move. The judge entered. Testimonies began. Jonah was calm, confident, surgical in his questions. He laid out the documents Martin had filed, the timeline of transfers, and the paper trail Gloria had uncovered. Then came the audio. We played the recording. The room went still. Martin's voice filled the spacer again, smug, laughing as he spoke about my age, my trust, my ignorance. You could feel the shift. His attorney leaned in, whispering fast. Martin's eyes widened. The courtroom didn't need drama. The truth was enough. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly, walked to the witness stand, and looked the judge in the eye. My name is Clara Whitmore, I began, and I may be 70 years old, but I am not naive. I told them everything. How Martin gained my trust after James died. How he handled my grief like it was a business meeting. How he smiled while stealing everything I'd built. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I let the words carry their own weight. He told me I didn't need to read, that someone like me shouldn't worry about the fine print, that I was just lucky to have someone looking out for me. I paused, then looked directly at Martin. But I wasn't lucky. I was targeted. The judge listened quietly, then nodded. Martin didn't say much when it was his turn. He stuttered, denied what he could, blamed the wording, the process, the misunderstanding, but the evidence had spoken. The room saw him clearly now, not as a trusted professional, but as a predator in a suit. The court recessed for the day. Jonah placed a hand on my shoulder. We've already won, he whispered, and I believed him, because Martin hadn't just lost the case. He had lost the story he built around himself. The verdict came 3 days later. I sat in the courtroom next to Jonah, with Gloria behind me and my hands folded neatly in my lap. The judge didn't waste time. All funds were to be returned, damages granted. Martin Hale disbarred and referred for criminal investigation. He stood frozen while the words landed, one after another like stones. I didn't look at him, not even once. I looked at Gloria. She smiled. I looked at Jonah. He nodded. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked for a comment. I said nothing. Justice didn't need headlines. I went home, took off my shoes, and stood in the middle of my quiet living room. Everything had been returned, my accounts, my home, even the old lake house. But it wasn't just the money. It was the feeling that I had reclaimed something deeper. My voice, myself, I didn't call Amber. I sat down that night with a blank sheet of paper and a pen. Not an email, not a text, a letter. I told her what happened, every part of it. The lies, the papers, the courtroom, how I fought, how I won. I didn't write to guilt her. I wrote to explain that sometimes mothers are strong in ways their children don't see, that age isn't weakness, and silence isn't surrender. I ended the letter with a single line. You may not have believed me then, but I hope you see me now. I sealed the envelope and left it in her mailbox myself. No doorbell, no confrontation. She could read it in her own time. If she never replied, that would be her choice. But I wasn't waiting for permission to feel proud of what I had done. The world tried to strip me of everything, my savings, my voice, my dignity, but I had taken it all back. And now I was planning what to do with the years I still had left. 1 month after the trial, I started something new. Not a lawsuit, not revenge, a foundation. The Whitmore Women's Fund, a place where women over 60 could go for legal help, financial advice, and protection from the exact kind of betrayal I had faced. I hired Gloria as director of operations. Jonah helped us set up every document this time, with every word reviewed, every sentence read twice. We opened in a modest brick building across from City Hall. No fancy plaque, just a warm office and sharp minds. Our first client was a woman named Bernice, 72. Her nephew had tricked her into signing over her house. She cried in my office. I held her hand. "We'll help you," I said. Because now I wasn't just a woman who fought back. I was a shield for others, and nothing, not age, not grief, not betrayal, could take that away from me. I saw Martin again by accident. He was walking out of the county clerk's office, alone. No briefcase, no suit. Just a tired man in a windbreaker with sunken eyes. He saw me, stopped, for a second. I thought he might speak, but he didn't. He just looked at Mirielle, looked and lowered his gaze. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat, just walked past him, steady on my feet. I had nothing to say to him, because justice had already been served. He walked away with nothing. And I walked into the life I built myself. Again. Now, I sign every paper carefully. Now, I ask the hard questions. Now, I live not with fear, but with knowledge. And when I think back to the day I gave him my trust with a careless stroke of a pen, I don't feel regret, I feel power. Because I took it back, word by word, line by line, signature by signature.